Sorry, I have problem with software.
Oh, okay.
Can
Take your
someone else
time, don't
do it?
worry.
Yeah, all right.
I think
I need to go out and come again.
while we are waiting for Ahmad, I think I would like to introduce. Okay, my name is Dr. Azza, and our panel from UTM is Dr. Leng Chong, or we can call PC. So our panel from DMU is Dr. Yuri Hadi. So our participant today is from UTM is Ahmad Hakim and also Beng Minyi. So and from DMU we have Will, Dudley, and also Lily. I see Lily there. Okay. So I just want to warm greetings to all the audience who from UTM, also from DMU. I see my fellow friends is here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us in the International Open Design Colloquium in 2021. So I see Hakim, I see Akmal. Did you ready with your? No, I think you unmute your mic. Okay.
All right.
Akmal is starting sharing.
Sorry, I'm
so...
using someone else's laptop, so this is my presentation. Can I start now? Can you see my screen?
Okay.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yes, you may start now.
All right. Right. Good morning to DMU lecturers and students, and good afternoon to UTM. So my name is Akmal, and I will start with my pre-thesis title, which is Reframing the Value of Daylighting Through Double Skin in Architecture. And so this, I will start with introduction, then go briefly with the issues, objective, background studies, and more deeply in design intention and daylight strategies. So in lighting in an office building, we all know one thing about the lighting is that it is renewable and not depleted in the long run. By optimizing the lighting, we can reduce energy consumption, such as provide a sustainable environment, overall health environment, and at the same time, we can increase workers' productivity by providing the opening and view to the occupants. And yet, we still heavily dependent on artificial lighting because it is the easiest and the cheapest solution. So that we, as a designer, opt to ignore the proper building envelope design. And in the long run, this will give a negative impact, such as sick building syndrome and polluted environment because of the energy usage we require. So the purpose of the research is to study the application of double skin envelope on the office building that as a sustainable design. And so the idea is to have aperture as a concept of the building, and it means an opening, hole, or a gap, and how these three things affecting the facade, the layout, and the building form. So we can reduce the energy consumption and at the same time counterbalance the heat gain and inconsistency of the daylight. So in designing for tropical climate, we need to achieve 1 to 3.5 of daylight factor and average illuminance of 200 to 400 lux level to achieve better daylight utilization in office building. So for my client is Pixar, and they have office building that need to be rented out, and that will be managed by WeWork. So this Pixar philosophy is about collaboration and togetherness. Then apply open plan design Atrium, as it can stimulate a sense of connectivity between the occupants. This can enhance the collaborative environment in the office building. And the site is located at Nusajaya Johor under flagship Zone B in Iskandar Malaysia Development. And the goal here is to nurture creative industry and to transform Nusajaya as a center hub for film hub industry. And the site is situated in front of the bay and surrounded by the residential and commercial area. So for a close-up view, this site is surrounded by the high-rise building, and the zoning, land zoning is for commercial land use. And for my building plot ratio, I will propose 1 to 2.25 with proposed building height 7 stories. And for daylight strategies, I will explain zoning and planning, building form, facade treatment, and lastly is atrium and building planning design. So first is zoning, which I will explain schedule study and program organization. So both bits, sorry. So based on Androma's simulation, the site is shaded by adjacent building. And the idea is to start with basic form and massing. And the space need less natural daylighting is located at the bottom and the shaded area. So the commercial area is located at below the office area, and the office area is on the top to maximize the usage of natural daylighting. And the site is surrounded by adjacent commercial building, and the intention here is to enhance the permeability and the connectivity. So I decided to lower the car park and stretch the car park and create a terrace form shape car park. So we can amplify the connectivity and walkability between the adjacent building, and so that the vehicular, so the vehicular access is hidden under the public spaces so that we can achieve a seamless pedestrian movement to the bay without any obstruction. And the cafes are intersected to the terrace podium, and the goal here is to maximize public activity and the interaction at the public space. So the office building is lifted up, and the canopy to the public space below. And at the same time, it enhanced the permeability of the site visually and physically. And second one is building form, which is the building perimeter, room depth, and the orientation of the building. So I try to increase the perimeter by splitting the building into 3, at the same time reducing the building depth to 18 meters. So the daylight penetration is applied by separating the building with 12-meter gap to create atrium in between the building itself. And based on Ecotech simulation, the building is oriented 37 degrees from north to suit the Malaysian climate. And the one is facade treatment. So to focus on lighting or double skin facade entropy, we need to focus on the shading device so that it can improve and enhance the lighting inside the building. And because Malaysia is located at the equator, we need to avoid the direct sunlight angle. And to design shading device, we need to know the vertical and horizontal sunlight angle because I rotate my building 37 degrees from north, I need to find new relative horizontal and vertical sunlight angle for my facade. So this is from my studies, and I have transferred the azimuth and altitude of the sunlight to the perpendicular of my facade so that I can get the new relative horizontal and vertical sunlight angle. So this is the outcome, and from my study, I will apply this sunlight angle to the shading device in my double skin facade for north and west facade. I conclude the various simulation and testing. This is the recommended option. We use option north and south facade and option 10 for west facade. So as you can see, it can achieve a minimum of 200 lux into the center of the building. And you can see that improve daylight factor at the center of the building, and at the same time reduce the excessive lux number near the window. So to apply the design to double skin facade, where for north facade, I reduce the angle penetration by dividing the window surface to 1 meter by 1 meter at north facade. And then I reduce so that I can reduce the horizontal overhang to 1.2 meter. And for west facade, I add a vertical fin to the horizontal fin, where the horizontal fin is perpendicular to the to the west southern angle. So, and the corridor is provided in between inner and outer skin to access for maintenance or to change material with solar panel when the technology is more efficient. So this is the west facade that I apply. And lastly is the Atrium Skylight design. And it's actually the same theory of horizontal and vertical sunlight angle. It's applied to the atrium. So, and this is the recommended option as it reduces excessive daylight penetration by avoiding the direct sunlight angle. This is the main atrium that links people inside the office. And the step seating is like the center space where you can anticipate, collaborate, or socialize with the other colleagues. And finally, I will explain the building planning. And from the zoning, I use linear and form and radial form planning. So this is the exploded axonometry to give you an overall idea of the building, where you can enter from the drop-off area here, and you enter to the north building, which is the pizza building, or you can go straight to the south building, which is the WeWork office. And or you can go straight down to the bay, and we have a floating deck over here. So and for you to, but at the same time, so you can where you can go to other building without need to go out the building, and at the same time you can experience the transition between spaces and outdoor environment. And going up is the office building, and we have atrium in the between pizza building, and the highlight of the atrium is the staircase above, which I call it the dream stair, where pizza holds the idea of keep dreaming, never stop dreaming, and there's the tagline to infinity and beyond from the first movie, which was Toy Story. So you have a roof above the atrium, and I want to give the effect where this stair takes you beyond the roof, but you actually pass through the atrium to go to the upper floor. So, and the openness of the collaborative purposes, the open plan office layout is applied to reduce the number of partition wall and thus improve the light distribution inside the building, and the space with low light level requirements such as meeting room and services is located at the center of the building. So this is a perspective from the bay, and this is the perspective from the main road, and this is some images before you enter the building, where you pass through the main podium and you can see the bay before you enter the building. And this is the public plaza, and so here is the public space below the building, and the aim here is to enjoy the outdoor, like enjoying the bay view, but they are still covered by the lifted building above. And this is the F&B area, where it's literally beside the office area, where you don't need to go out to the building to get some refreshment. And this is the view from the atrium. This is the office, and that's all. And I will play video for you to experience the building. Can So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, that's all. Okay, thank you, Akmal. Interesting research on daylight in the hot and humid climates. So by using the data from the daylight, and then you come up with the uh, double skin architecture. So I think I would like to call upon Dr. Yuri to give his comment on this, and then after that followed by PC. I look into the PC face. There are lots of questions, I believe, because of he's very expert on the environment. So okay, we give to the Dr. Yuri for his comment first.
I think I kind of need a bit of like some contextual framing first. Like for example, whose unit is this, and then I kind of realized that this is kind of like focus on one particular unit, and what's the background of this particular unit? It's from Enviro Studio. So what does Enviro Studio do? I mean, with that, I mean, when our students present later with Lily and Will, I mean, they represent the context of that studio, because there must be an overarching theme here. Dr. Azali, what is the Enviro Studio?
Hopefully, I can speak a little bit on this.
Please,
okay,
yes.
Dr. Yuri. All right. Because for your information, in MR or Master of Architectures in UTM, we have 3 pre-thesis, which is so-called the pre-thesis 1 is social culture team. Then after students are taking either one of it, pre-thesis 1, 2, or 3. So some students might start with pre-thesis 3, then pre-thesis 1 or 2, and so forth. All right. So whichever one they can, they have to take before they go into final thesis. So they can pick one of it, either pre-thesis 1, 2, or either 3 to become their final thesis project. Okay, as their graduating project. So Akmal currently, in the previous semester, he is in Enviro, or so-called the pre-thesis 3. Which is focusing on the sustainable technology. And in pre-thesis 3, there are not only just one so-called work base, for your information, we have like several, depends on the amount of students that registering for that semester. For previous semester, we have 2 so-called work base under Enviro, or which is so-called the sustainable technology. Then Akmal is under Dr. Roshida as a head of panel. And in Dr. Roshida work base or at panel, all the students are required to study about the daylighting features, or so-called like the daylighting components, okay, as in their seminar, which is also the crit one. So some students are studying about shading device, some students are studying about the light tube, courtyard, and so forth. So after the seminar sessions, okay, so students are free to choose one of the components to be integrating in their project. So in terms of the site-wise, they are free to pick any site around them, because currently, last semester, students are still under, they are not coming back to schools. They are working at their hometown. Hence, they are free to choose any site around them. Okay, for example, some in Kuching, some in KL, and so forth. But the components and the items that they're studying is the same, which is the daylighting features. So in here, Akmal is studying about the apertures and shading device. So throughout the presentation, as what you can see, he has putting a lot of efforts presenting on the comprehensive designs on the sun shading device that related to their client. And for their client, they can choose any clients that they like, as long as there's a reason for them to integrating and justifying in this case. Yeah.
So technically, PC, so they have three components, and then they in Akmal case, Akmal said that okay, my objective is mainly building performance. So the overarching exploration is all about trying to look at how can I explore design ideas in terms of building performance. If is that right? If I'm correct.
For sure, yes. They have to in the same, even though they are trying to venturing into the environmental factors, but in the same time they still have to address on the site context, in the social cultures, urbanism context and so on. Yeah, but mainly for that semester, they have to show their efforts, okay, in presenting on their ideas and knowledge about the environmental sustainable technologies.
How long do they still have for this project?
Do you mean by the project is one semester? First semester, I mean, each semester, they have to take one of the pre-thesis. So this is considered around like 5 months. Okay, it's considered one semester for them to study about this one. But in the same time, basically 3 weeks. The 3 to 4 weeks is considered the time frame for them to study about the literature reviews. About the apertures sharing device that they are choosing from. Then they have to present the output. So after that, they have to start off their own project based on their clients, the site they pick up. Yeah, based on what they have studied together with their friends.
So there is still kind of like life in this project in the next few weeks. I'm gonna say few weeks, like 6 or 7 weeks again towards. So because before we can give you a very meaningful feedback. I mean, we just don't want to come in a horse and trumpet and then trample everyone, and then like with a trumpet, like poo, 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 something like that. But no, it's just that I think so. So there is like room for exploration.
Exactly. Because this is they are not just taught here. Because we have the pre-thesis and thesis. Okay, eventually it's become a whole package. But students, if like for example, let's say Akmal wish to bring this project and make it as his final project, so he can choose this project and bring into thesis. So in thesis, he still have to look into these buildings and what is the lacking of this project, so he can trying to rectify or amends or make goods of this project, okay, based on the previous comments, okay, and present it against in the final thesis. So that's so-called a whole package. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So still
Thank
have
you,
room
PC.
for improvements. Don't worry, we can just give him suggestions. I think will be good for him. Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you, PC. That's really good. Akmal, that's a very thorough presentation. So very good in a way that we kind of like understand what you're trying to do here, and then it's very straight to the point in a way that from what I'm reading in terms of where you are right now, you seem to be quite focused on building performance and looking at the objective and the background of the study and design intentions. I think you seem to put a lot of like your effort and design decisions in terms of like how you're gonna put the facade and then the rotation of the building. I think in terms of like that context to Enviro, my comment on that is that it looks in a general sense, it does look good. I mean, but I would say that there are quite a lot of things that you can actually improve and carry on forward in terms of the project. If you look at, but there's also another aspect in terms of like site context and also what you can do in terms of like expanding the conceptual idea. That's also something that you can look forward in the future. But let's look at slide number 10. I mean
this one.
Yeah. So this is kind of like your client in a way that you're taking into consideration of pizza and WeWork. I think in my personal opinion, I mean, because designing a building, an office space, is actually quite straightforward in a way that it's usually what we see is only an empty space, and then the empty space is kind of like just framed by four walls, and it will be interesting if you kind of like look at in terms of like how the distribution of space in especially creative space like pizza or WeWork, and then you because if you look at your layout, it's still quite there's a lot of things that you can argue. Like, for example, how does a creative space how do people in pizza do their work, and then you can be quite detailed in terms of like creating like spaces where they do work, and then spaces where they can do they can meet up with each other. I mean, and spaces where they can have discussions. And it would be interesting that when you kind of like break up that space, and then suddenly, and then that could be related to how you solve building performance, because each spaces have each different usage, and then if you can be quite specific on it. I think in terms of, and also we've been in lockdown for more than a year, and then one of the interesting things is that people don't go to work at offices anymore, and this is kind of like a bit of a paradox on your thesis, Akmal. I don't know how, like, it's interesting, like WeWork has a lot of space in Shoreditch, and because of lockdown, they are on the verge of like closing down, because no one is coming over, and then also doing and then working on that on their spaces. Disney recently released their new animated feature, Raya and the Last Dragon. Interesting about the animated picture is that everything is done at home. So they did all the animation, and then they did all the discussion and everything through Zoom, and then it was animated and processed at home, and not at home. They kind of like send it to a central processing computer in their pizza studio, and then that kind of like changes. Yeah. So my argument, Akmal, is that would that be a parameter that might change a way in terms of how you design the space inside your building? Would it be more than just a box? And I mean, then you can actually segment the space more, and then it becomes more creative. And I think the way that you kind of explore the design idea, you're only looking at the pizza philosophy. I mean, it's not pizza philosophy that you should look at. I think you should look at it in terms of like how people work in terms of the spaces, because ideally, I kind of feel that if you kind of like just make it into a 4-wall square space, there's not much design exploration there. Okay, let's go on to slide number 12. If you look at slide number 12, like your side, maybe go further more down, slide 14. Let's go look at slide 14. Yeah, and I think there's not much information for us to know about the location of your site, and can we look at the proposed site? So the proposed site is, it's actually quite a beautiful, it's actually quite a beautiful site, because it's located in a harbor. Yeah. So again, in terms of building performance, and also, because it's a new site, there's not much things that are happening there, and yeah, I think there's contextual response. There's not much I can I can comment on that, but let's go down. Okay, let's just talk about the design. I think let's go to your axonometric. I think the axonometric kind of like gives a lot of like ideas in terms of your design. Okay, hold on. I mean, if we were talking on Miro, I can actually draw on it.
Where is it? Sorry.
I think let's look at the axono. I think the axono is very interesting in the way that I mean, I would leave all the details in terms of like building performance to PC in a way. Maybe he can expand on that one. Like, okay, when I look at your building design, I think the most interesting part of your design when we look at the interface between the upper road and the on the marina, and I think that's the most interesting bit about your design. But when it goes up into the office space, it just kind of like lost. I mean, it's not lost. I mean, there's a lot of design opportunities that you can do, and the connection between the lower spaces is actually quite nice. But when you can look at the upper spaces, can you draw on this one? No, you can't draw. So
I think you can draw on VBAX.
How do you draw on VBAX?
Wait.
At the left-hand side, there is a bar, kind of the menu, asked to annotate. Can you see that?
Left-hand bar.
Yeah, the first icon.
Menu, first icon.
Asked to annotate.
Okay. Request.
So Dr. Azza has to give permissions, perhaps, or
I
Got it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, like for example, for example, I know that you kind of like break it into three because that's kind of like a reflection of your building performance. But it would be interesting if you kind of like can break up the space more, and then the facade. I mean, right now it's just a box, and then you can create more like atrium spaces, because you have to look at how Google designed their office space, how Apple designed their office spaces. I know it's an open workspace, but it's very open. And can you go down further down? Can we see the ground floor plan?
Sorry.
Okay. Look at the ground floor plan. Next slide. Okay. If you look at the ground floor plan, I mean, one other aspect of like building performance is not entirely about the building. I mean, okay, it's all right. What you can do is like you can extend some of the landscape towards there, and then design the landscape, or maybe bring some of the elements of the water, and then maybe that could improve building performance on the building. Because I think the most interesting part of your design is this area, because you can see that you put a lot of design ideas on it. But when it comes to this, it just feels like you just kind of like went straight for the facade, but you're not looking into opportunities in terms of what you can do inside the office. So that's and it's very good to be practical in terms of like how you solve the problem. But if there's an opening in terms of design decision, go for it. Also, this is a tropical climate. Is all your buildings still going to be air conditioned, or is it going to go back to the old days where everything is passively is passive? It's all passive.
Trying to go passive design as much as possible.
And that's a huge challenge if you want to go passive design, because if you look at all your design, there's a lot of glass there. That's it, that your covered walkway is also covered in a glass.
Yeah.
I mean, passive design has been achieved like 30 years ago when Corbusier designed a lot of brought that idea. And also, if you look at Chandigarh, and then if you look at all the old buildings that were designed in Brasilia and Chandigarh, there's a lot of design ideas there. So, but yeah, I'm not sure about that. So let's look at the other slide, the facade in a way. Can you explain to me more about the facade?
Wait. To stop the annotation.
So this is without the facade.
This is the facade, but actually I will explain on using this light.
Brise Soleil.
Yeah, this actually looks like a crate.
But even if you look at lighting in your building, there's a lot of like dark areas in the middle. So
Yeah.
it means that you probably need to introduce a lot of courtyards into your building to bring that lighting in. So that's going to be quite a major design change in that block by itself. I still think that the block needs this block needs kind of like it, for example, this your design maybe you kind of like need to break something in there to kind of like get rid of that darkness, or maybe your block can be segmented more.
Yeah.
Because or maybe it doesn't have to be a square. You kind of like you can break the square bit. I mean, Akmal, there's a I mean, don't yeah, maybe not a balcony, I don't know, but maybe bring more lighting in it. Just break from the square, and then don't treat design as just a square, and then you kind of like just decorate the facade. And also the interior, don't go into the position where you become an interior designer. Likewise, there are a lot of the parts inside the building that you can actually embed it into the design, like how people sit down, the facade, even the windows. Because if you look at how Le Corbusier designed the windows, and then the windows are also part of the facade. The facade is also part of the balcony. I mean, we are missing that sort of like design ideas. And then I mean, it's very good that you're focusing on building technical, but I think it's missing that sort of like more design exploration. Not treating it as just an element that you kind of like decorate inside and outside of the building. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I'm gonna pass it to PC.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yuri.
Yeah, thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Yuri.
Dr. Azhar.
Okay.
You want to initiate something? Sorry.
I hope that Akmal will take note of the lot of comments, very constructive comments. I think I going to pass to the PC for the next comment. I think it's quite a lot of things to comment. I think from PC. Yeah.
Not necessary, because Amal is I'm used to be one of the panel for Akmal when I'm together with the Dr. Roshida, architect Samsia, as well as Dr. Lim, okay, in the previous semester panels. Okay, so probably Akmal, I would like to top up a little bit based on what Dr. Yuri has commented, which is quite constructive and good input for you to improve further in your probably maybe you want to bring this project to your final design thesis later. Okay, so in this case, in terms of the Enviro studies, I'm sure that you have received a lot of good inputs from the previous panels. Okay, and comments from the creep panels and so forth. All right. In this case, I just wish to probably want to talk a little bit about the company profiles as well as the ideas of the context. Okay. Yeah. In terms of the Enviro study, no doubt that you have done a very good job in terms of how you respond towards the context. I mean, the environmental context. Okay. Just now, when you present, something sparks over my head is more towards like you are designing for the Pixar. Okay. Then you are showing the logos of Pixars. What is that logo about? Is that the there's light, right? Am I right? Yeah, it's a lamp, right?
Yeah.
And you are doing about daylighting. Yeah. Okay, this is something that interesting that you can trying to relate and link about this. And we are in tropical climates. So in tropical climates, we have abundance of the daylighting opportunities. So throughout from at maybe 7 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and in the afternoons is abundance. And the angles of the sunlight varies accordingly throughout the days. So it would be one probably depends on how you're going to look at that. It could be opportunity or something which as a threat, but it depends on how you're going to address that. All right. So in your case, you are designing on the sun shading device. All right. And what is Pixar's dealing with? Cinematography, right? Okay. And the logo is about lighting. All right. Hence, something over my head is like how you can make it a little bit like a storyline. Okay, out of the components that I've been mentioning just now. One is the logos, okay, that which could give you an ideas. Another one is about the natural daylighting, sunlight angles, and so forth. Hence, what's the office needed, okay, in general, and what is so special about the Pixar office compared to the office? I am sure there are some certain spatial space that they need for their work. Okay, not just paperwork or just like computer work and so forth. Hence, how those lighting, angles of the lighting and angles of the sun shading device and the size of the openings, okay, the design could allow you to play with the mood, okay, ambience of the indoor environments that could suit back to their working environment. So in the same time, you could use these ideas to be implemented along the journey. Okay, how you want to create the mood, okay, of this kind of the office, which make it special. Because Pixar office, there's a lot of Pixar office around the world, I'm sure. Why they choose Malaysia and how you make your Pixar office, okay, even though they are renting it out, but I'm sure that they want certain kind of the identity that which representing to the context itself. Hence, this could be something that you can study a little bit more in the future if you want to bring this into your thesis, which can make the Enviro or the technical studies comprehensive, not only just on that aspect, but also giving the input of the injections of the architecture's identity to this office itself. Okay, Amal, I hope this could probably helps you, okay, to improve this thesis, okay, in the next stage. All right, okay, yeah.
I think before we go to the next one, I think we are kind of a bit, just one final thing. I did send you some of my comments on your private. So if you kind of like read it, I think I want to explore how you can actually break from the rectangular form and then do and see what you can do more in terms of like how you can explore the spaces inside. Bring some of the exciting spatial layout from the ground floor. I mean, what's stopping it from going straight up into your building, even up to the top floor, to the roof of the building? I mean, that whole ribbon things. I mean, bring it up, and then maybe that breakout those spaces can create these opportunities for lighting, opportunities for normal daylight to happen, and also it can improve air circulation and everything, because sometimes sometimes we have to think that building performance isn't necessarily all about measuring it. Sometimes you kind of introduce things that kind of actually improve it. Your brise soleil, your facade. I mean, right now you're just using the same facade for the whole building. Likewise, in different angles of the facade, in different types of the floor of the facade, you can actually design different brise soleil design that can actually control different amounts of lighting that comes into your building. Maybe for your cinema or for lecture theater, there is no brise soleil there because people need less lighting, or maybe for your for like services like toilets and everything, you don't need brise soleil there, and then it's just a blank wall. So Akmal, there is a lot of design opportunities there, and I hope you kind of like don't stop there and then kind of like exploit more, and then your building will be more richer. Okay, thank you, Akmal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yuri. Okay, very constructive comments and very motivated also. Okay, we are moving to the next participant. I think I would like to call upon from the DMU. So, are you ready, Will?
Yep, I'm happy to go.
Yes. Okay. The floor is yours. You can start sharing.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Okay, let me know if you can't see things very well. We'll start off with just where we are. So in a city called Manchester, which is in the northwest of England, we've got the Scottish border up here, London down here, and just Wales and Ireland over here off to the left. And then if we zoom in, you've got the city, you've got the main ring road that goes around it. And then the building that I'm choosing to focus on is right in the center by an old kind of rail bridge that goes over into the side of it. Got a few roads joining in that go towards the city center, and then some empty lots down here. So, and this is just a map kind of showing where the train stations are around it. And while I sit on that, I'll kind of talk about our brief. So we're talking about kind of the urban growth and cities and filling in areas because of how busy cities are starting to get and how kind of populated countries and larger areas are starting to get now, starting to find places that we can fit into and make the best out of spaces that haven't really been used, but also kind of reviving old architecture so rather than just demolishing it or rather than just buying up new land entirely, just trying to find old buildings or unused buildings or buildings that haven't really been used as well as they could be, and seeing if you can kind of bring them up to speed and get them going with a retrofit project or some sort of reuse project. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on particularly. I really like the idea of bringing an old building back to life. So then my theme in particular, I'll talk about the site in just a second. My theme is all about mental health, and it's quite an abstract theme to present visually. So the first thing that I've started with is just collages and diagrams, just trying to express a much less like solid conversation digitally so that you can actually see it and try and understand what I talk about to make it easier for the project to kind of make sense. So what I've based it on is we've got 5 characters or 5 core characters, and they're each inspired from various stories. A writer called Roald Dahl wrote a series of short stories on madness, and we've also got some characters based on real case studies written up by psychoanalysts in the UK. And then it's all about breaking down their symptoms, their conditions, what they're suffering from, and then ultimately how a space might help rehabilitate them and how you might kind of bring them back into a normal reality and how you might start to reintegrate them with society. So we're focusing a lot on trying to heal, trying to accommodate severe mental disorder, and trying to just make it comfortable, because it's quite an uncomfortable conversation normally, especially around here. I don't know what it's like for you guys, but it's something that a lot of English people would generally avoid talking about because it's a really hard topic to comprehend. If somebody says that they're stressed, we can understand it because we get stressed as well. But if someone starts saying that they're anxious or that their reality might be different to ours, it's a really hard thing to get a grip on. So we're trying to be really sympathetic and trying to have spaces that have a capacity for, you know, making these people feel like they're heard and understood. So that's what this series is about. I make the character, I design a profile for them, and then I go through their symptoms and conditions, and then I start to collage in a way that might express what I think is going on with them. And then that goes through and we solidify the characters and then start to think how I might integrate their personalities within the spaces of the old building. So within this old building, there's lots of really decaying, horrible areas because it hasn't been used for a number of years and no one is looking after it anymore. So there's lots of floors that are kind of warping, lots of walls that are crumbling, lots of places that are really just falling apart. And so the whole basis of the project is not only bringing life back to this old building, but also it runs in parallel with bringing a person who's suffering back into reality, because some of these conditions, reality will start to fragment in a way that they will just lose track of what they're seeing, and it won't make sense to them, and it won't make sense to others when they try and describe it. So we're trying to bring both things back together in the same way, rejuvenating an old building, coaxing and healing a suffering person. And then so it's all collage, because that's the way I really like to work, and it's the way I think expresses these ideas really well and really colourfully. And I like it to stay playful, but I also want it to be as sincere as possible. So these are about the characters. This one here is one character in particular who's focused on sound and nature. He has a particular obsession that's got him admitted into the clinic. And then we've got different kinds of therapies and different kinds of ways that the spaces of the program might interact with the space of the building. So I'll talk about the site a bit more now, because I hope that's explained my angle. So the building is called Hotspur House. It's an old printing press, and it's from the Victorian era. So I've done a typical bit more collaging just to help me get to know various parts of the site, just things that stuck out to me, various steelworks, a particular bridge, kind of characters around the site, characters of the theme, and kind of just architectural interest for me. And then these are some photos around the inside. So you can really get a feel. It's super dingy, really run down, and really abandoned looking. But there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of interesting kind of structural stuff. There's a lot of interesting personality going around, from where different materials have started to fade. People have been in covering it with graffiti. So it's a really interesting kind of place. And I think that this idea of a building looking quite normal on the outside, looking quite normal on the outside, that's the only picture on there, and then having all this stuff going on the inside that you wouldn't guess was going on, I think that's a really good kind of metaphor for mental health, where somebody might look normal and they might look like they're coping really well, but on the inside they might actually be really struggling. So that's a lot of what I'm trying to do and trying to talk about. So I've talked a lot about here about a journey around the site and starting to bring life back to this old kind of abandoned area, and starting to imagine how different journeys and different stories might go around it. And then is that next? And then I've started to talk about how we'd identify mental conditions. So thinking about it spatially, this series is supposed to represent how people start to just lose touch. All of the text talks about how mental health, mental illness and mental disorder is really common, and how it starts to just break down your kind of perception. So everything is kind of normal daily life, and everything looks normal from the outside. And then, the worse it gets, the more fragmented, the more busy it starts to get in your head. I'm sure we've all had moments where we're sitting there and random images, random thoughts, maybe a song starts playing that we heard earlier in the day. Just stuff like this starts to pop up and starts to interfere with our daily life. And then the more kind of neurotic you get, the more psychotic you get as it develops, the worse and the more messy this starts to get, and the more it starts to be a problem for you. So the first thing I did from that study was starting to explore this architecturally, starting to think about how something that's seemingly normal, seemingly fine and just plain, could actually have something really chaotic and really turbulent just crashing through it. And this is supposed to really express how it's just ready to burst at any point, just the slightest chance of sending it over the edge. So this is just the model of my building in its purest form, just all white, no texture, no distraction, just something that you'd look at and it wouldn't catch your eye whatsoever, just really plain. And yet, unbeknownst to you, there is this crazy, high energy, chaotic geometry flowing inside it, just ready to explode outwards. And then trying to think about how spaces might be created from this and how you might work around it, might interact within these areas. So starting to think of it in sectional drawings, because I think that's the most apt way of approaching a conversation like this. If you're taking a section of a building and you're taking a section of a person, the idea of looking inside, trying to understand how everything's working on the inside. So there's a lot of sections going on in the project so far, and it's probably the drawing type that I've focused on most so far. And I think there are some really interesting spatial qualities starting to come. You can see that it's really, really chaotic, really hard to picture yourself working in a space like that. And I think that's really appropriate, because if you think about someone who's suffering from schizophrenia, where they're really losing touch with their surroundings, the idea that if you could see that physically, that would probably be really hard to imagine yourself living in. And if you were picturing those side by side, that's kind of the aim of this study. And then starting to think about how people might work and live and just move around these areas. So the top series are all about circulation, just different areas getting between different therapies, different rehabilitation, accommodation spaces, etc. And then below, just really bespoke therapy rooms designed around the character profiles that I talked about earlier. So the same guy talking about sound, he may have a performance space. There's a girl who, a refugee girl, lost all of her family. So trying to express all of the kind of ghosts of her past and all the really story qualities of her narrative, but then also trying to imagine the different conditions she might be suffering and how these conditions may inform bespoke, just really highly tailored spaces for her. And then it just kind of, it goes through like that, expressing the different characters and expressing how they might interact with their spaces and how they might generate space just based on their specific requirements. So obviously with this, it's not really a design, it's more of an experiment. So I had to start rationalizing it. And this is kind of the first iteration of me rationalizing all of these ideas. So I've got one big main building, and then I've also got lots of subsidiary spaces with much more ordinary programmatic stuff. Like I'll show you on the plan as well. So this is the whole scheme. We've got a canal that runs down the side it, which makes some really interesting levels in the site, and got a kind of a main high street that runs along here. And my general thought is that there's got to be two kind of halves to the way it's laid out. So there's an area, I'll actually just use the pen because I think that'll be clearer. So we've got an area here, which is like a walk-in day clinic for everyone. Anyone from the public could make an appointment. They can come in, they can see a therapist, they can discuss just their daily lives. And that's a really standard space. all I really need to worry about is privacy and just something, just calmness. So nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy, nothing chaotic going on, just normal spaces for normal people. And then got some staff entrance here, they can come in and then they can walk through this really nice grand corridor with lots of light coming in from the street here, lots of tall glazing. And then they come into the main staff area with a courtyard in here. And then they'd have their offices around, and this is where they could meet each other, they could discuss their work, they can keep their files, and they can also help each other, they can relax. And the thing about working in a mental health clinic, working as a therapist, it's actually very mentally taxing. The idea that you're always giving parts of yourself to people who are always taking because they need so much help and so much reassurance sometimes. The person working and constantly giving all of this to multiple people each day starts to lose their own identity and starts to lose their own image of themselves. So they need help and they need places where they can support each other. Also, here, I thought it would be really a nice idea if you're trying to reintegrate people with society who have started to lose touch with reality and the modern life. The idea that a theatre space may be somewhere where they can perform. So let's talk about the guy with a sound obsession. If he started to make music, this would be an area for him to perform for people, and it would put him into this quite intense but also quite controlled social atmosphere where he would control the pace of it, and also it starts to reintegrate him with just social atmospheres, social conversation, and just social thinking. The idea that he's in front of people, the way that he would affect the space and how that would affect the people. So theatre seems like quite a playful but quite a serious way of interacting my program with the rest of the city in it. I wanted it to make sure that it was never just an entirely private space, that this old building wasn't going to be completely lost to the city. So I wanted to make sure there are a couple of ways for people just to enter from the street and still be a part of the facility. And then the main facility, which is shown in all the sections, which is this big box here. That's not a very thick pen, so I'll do that again. And this is the main area that's shown in the sections. And this is where a lot of it's the biggest and the grandest open space. A lot of the open therapy sessions would happen here. People would come in, they'd be given a certain area, and they'd be allowed to manipulate that space in a way that was specific to them. And then they'd also be able to kind of interact with each other. They'd be exposed to each other a certain amount, and it would just be a really busy, really lively, large open space. And then there's obviously a need for some more private areas. So we've got starting to make areas that are a bit more closed off, which would be like in here. And then as I develop the design, there's going to need to be some more areas kind of this open space that do just kind of section it out a little bit more. And I'll talk about that a bit when I move on to the sections. And then there's also a big entrance here where public, but mainly aimed at family and visitors to specific patients, can come in. There'd be lots of kind of conference and learning opportunities going on in the main open space. And then within the courtyards, they'd be able to meet their friends, meet their relatives who are within the facility, and they'd be able to kind of just get together that way. I'll just quickly whiz through the sections. The idea, so this is the main open area where people would come in from, as I just mentioned. And then the idea is that there's actually a door going to go in there. And the idea is that they come in, and then you'd walk up these escalators. Not a particularly bright pen. We'll use orange, that's a nice one. Not a particular, so then they'd walk in through this large step, keep going in, this area all opens up, and then they walk in, and it's quite narrow, and then all of a sudden the space really opens up in front of them. It's this huge open area, loads of life, loads of activity, and then when there are materials, when there's a load of more furniture put in, I think this is going to be a really busy really interesting kind of space. So I'm quite excited to see how that plays out. And then, you know, the same section from the other side, interactions between the outside of the intervention and the inside, lots of glazing, trying to make it quite porous, and just kind of how there's not much landscaping done yet, but this is the main courtyard, main building with the intervention. And then this is the staff corridor that runs through here, and then the staff area, which you can just glimpse through there. And then we're starting to get some quite interesting views, just kind of expressing how the interior of these spaces might work, how the levels start to kind of go all over the place a little bit, starting to introduce how there might be some natural elements, and then starting to think about how the different qualities of light might come in from these really mixed levels, lots of glazing, lots of areas to view other spaces from, and particularly interested in interactions between multiple floors. I think that kind of covers everything. I'm happy to keep going, or I'm happy just to open up to questions.
Okay, a very interesting topic on the mental health problem. So, yeah, according to the WHO, they are in the developing country and also developed country, there are 35 and also 50 people are facing the mental health problem, and also is 76 and also nearly to 85% are not receive any treatment. So I think this is good issues on this. So regarding to your design, I would like to call Dr. PC to give us some comments or something, a constructive comment and anything. Moving to
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azza, and thanks, Will, for your presentation. Very interesting. And yeah, the storyline itself is just like watching a movie. It's very interesting, and you have well crafted the storylines, bringing us from the context, the issues, slowly into the pictures, comics, or eventually how the product is being illustrated. Yeah, very interesting. Okay. Yeah. Maybe about the philosophical aspect. Maybe I need Dr. Yuri to quiz or giving comments about that. So I just wish to share certain fews ideas or comments. I mean that I have looked through when I follow through your presentations. Okay. When it's talking about the space, okay, I think that is quite good. In terms of the play, you are trying to play around with the ambience or the moods of each of the spaces, and how you're going to bring people from one space to another. All right. Okay. In this case, I just probably I wish to know about do you have any backups or like for example the informations that helps you to formulating the space requirements, for example, it's not technical things but more towards the how come if this person he or she's having these kinds of the mental problem, so what is the so-called the enough the parameter daylightings or even the modes of the lighting or the space sizes to get you when you come to this extent. Is there any or you might to share any?
Yeah, I can say I'll talk about I'll talk about two things in that. So I can see why you're asking that, because yep, you can kind of tell that there's not much going on in these designs yet. But yeah,
yeah,
it's okay. So the focus is exactly as you say. Now that the form is starting to come together, I'm going to start trying to bring this kind of life into these spaces. So I've got a lot of lists, a lot of information, a lot of stuff that really goes into detail on each and every one of them, and the kind of spaces that might react to the specific treatments they might need. So if I talk about the sound guy, because I've mentioned him quite a lot, he would have a really closed off space. So his would probably be something like this, if that's going to load in. So he would need a nice, completely closed off envelope. There'll need to be some sort of work making it soundproof, so it'd probably have those really jaggedy walls put in, and then that way he can have a really private space that doesn't interfere with the general atmosphere of the rest of the areas. But I think that part of what I want to do, as well as giving them these private areas with separate envelopes and separate atmospheres, at the moment, because of how uncomfortable the conversation around mental health can be, I really want to break down the walls of it. I want it to become such an acceptable thing to talk about that obviously there still has to be some privacy, and especially privacy when people need it, when people aren't comfortable going out into an open space. But I kind of want it to be that it's this big open space because I want it to become this big open conversation. So what I'm going to start doing is, or what I plan to, I don't know if everyone will agree that this is the way to go, but I plan to start selecting areas and just working into these areas in specific ways, giving them really detailed programs, and then showing exactly how these different kinds of spaces are going to be used. And the spaces I'm kind of highlighting, the spaces currently in my mind at the moment for these kinds of uses. And so there'll be lots of space in between them, but also that's just kind of like one of the next steps for me, is just developing these specific areas and showing that a bit more clearly.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I quite like this space. Yeah, and you are trying to make it, and probably in the next steps you can trying to look for some of the informations that you can materialize. Okay, each of the space, maybe in terms of the guidelines, or I mean the guidelines doesn't mean the uniform building bylaw or so forth, but more towards like how could this kind of the space with the enough of, for example, enough play lighting or the height itself could slowly giving the treatments, okay, slowly from one space. It's like a journey from one to another. So this throughout when they're walking around the building itself, slowly could open up their hearts, okay. So for sure, each of the space, intermediate space that we're trying to integrating at like one stop to another could be eventually becomes one of the stop along their treatments, and maybe eventually they will come to one space that could probably if it's needed, like they can meet up with each other, like for example the theaters, okay, or certain kind of the open roof deck or whatsoever that can open up their minds, okay, or open up their views, which make them feel much better, okay, at the final of the journey. So this could be some sort of like a storylines that you could trying to make and illustrate, okay, along the ways that you explain about this, which is good. This one I like it. So we hope that maybe next stage you could trying to materialize it and integrating on some maybe clients itself that they wish to see how you are going to construct this. Maybe you can select few of the sections of the building itself, yeah, so at least let them having some kinds of the ideas on how this place works. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. We are running time. So
Okay. Thanks for the...
okay, thank you, Dr. PC.
Thank you so much.
I can give some sort of short time for Dr. Yuri. Just give a precise comment. I think could be short and precisely.
I don't think I think because we just have this conversation about your design wheel about two or 3 days ago. So so I think the conversation with myself and Will is kind of like, okay, Will, I'm just gonna repeat it. I think yeah, it's time to kind of like rationalize this project more, and also it's important for you to detail up the building envelope so that we can see the contrast between the building on the inside and then the outside envelope. And yeah, I do agree with PC's comment. I mean the development of it is yeah, I think the narrative and everything is already there. We are just kind of right now you have like another month or more to kind of like complete this into a building, and then I'm confident you can actually do this, and then the discussion will be move on into like like detailing it up into a building, into a proper building. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
you,
Will.
Doctor. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Will. And
All right.
also,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Oops.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yuri, and also Will. So, without further ado, we call a presenter or participant from UTM. Minji, are you ready with your slide?
Hi, I'm Minji from UTM, and today I'm going to present about my thesis design in Recursive Enviro Studio. In the Recursive Design, adaptive building envelope or the parametric facade design is being utilized as a passive design strategy to manage the building daylight control. So before having deeper discussion into the topic, I would like to introduce a little bit about the thesis project. And the aim of the project is to reduce the energy usage in terms of lighting and cooling load through parametric facade, which help in enhance the energy performance of a building. And in this project, the research scope in designing parametric facade using recursive design approach, including building surface radiations, interior illuminance level, and also the building programs in solving existing issues and problems. Well, recursive design is the design strategy where the development of the design is initiated through focuses on the systematic process using a precise specifications of systems components to create applications independent architectures with a high degree of automations achieved through large-scale code generation and also broad applicability, focusing on the real-time system. So to simplify, recursive design by definition is when a thing is defined in terms of itself, where it calls itself over and over again until a base condition is met that breaks the law. Actually, recursive design brought to several advantages as shown. And then not only its ability in reducing the producing final products, it also reduces technical error in applying, and at the same time, it ensures a more systematic design. So based on the literature review, climate change due to excessive productions of greenhouse gases had led to a lot of problems. And parametric facade, however, is one of the strategies in encountering the issues. Parametric facade design is one of the passive design strategy that ensure the greater control of daylight quantity and quality. The case study of building using dynamic parametric facade design are as shown, which including the Al Bahar Tower at Abu Dhabi, and also the case study at RAT, and also the coding campus. In this project, when designing the parametric facade, the origami is used in developing the design idea. The facade panel was being designed such that linking the relationship between origami and algorithms. In parametric facade design, it always affected and related to parameters and algorithms. However, there are relationships between origami and algorithms. In other words, we could always relate origami to the panel units. As shown in the illustration from simple origami boxes, it could be modified to simple single open shading devices or double-sided open shading devices. However, for a complex origami boxes like snap lock origami boxes, foldable boxes, and twist and open boxes, they could also be transformed into parametric facade unit when the folding mechanism is being observed and integrate with the respective algorithm. Thus, in this design, I decided to use the twist and open boxes as parametric facade unit when the food, when there is no sunlight, it will be as shown in this video. When there is no sunlight, and it will close, and when there are bright and strong sunlight, it will open for the when it is placed at the building. So this the my design idea about what's going to happen when it's placed on the building. So the proposed site is located just next to Punggol MRT at Singapore. And following with the studies of the proposed site, there are several issues and problems found in Punggol. And overall, the issues and problem statement of this project includes lack of connecting spaces for the community, lack of food attractions, and lack of office building. So the research objective includes to create a field of space connections to the community by encouraging more accessibility to and from the site. Next, to produce an office building which could reduce the travel time of the adjacent community to reduce traffic congestion. And lastly, to identify the integrations of parametric facade design in achieving the light intensity required in order to provide a better visual environment spaces for office, library, and also the mixed-use building. To sum up in this project, I decided to propose a mixed-use building which have offices that allow the community and people live in Punggol to have opportunity to rent and work so that it could reduce their travel distance to city center and help to reduce the traffic congestion problems of Punggol. The strategy of recursive design is being applied where a library is included in this project and is aimed to improve the lifestyle of the community, that it could have more better amenities and facilities in their neighborhood. So this is the design development of the mixed-use building. And then in this design, recursive design is applied on several elements in the building. First of all, acoustic wall panels, which is derived from the shape of the parametric facade panel units at different opening levels. Also, the railing panels, and which is derives from the same design, and also the playground. And lastly, the tree is being derived from the shape where it have 4 segments. And I found that in Singapore and Malaysia, Musa is a type of tree which have 4 petals flowers. So in this project, plants with four petals is being planted throughout the buildings. In corresponding to the trees being planted at the site, the color scheme of the building is selected relative to the color obtained from the Musa as shown. But in applying the parametric facade into building, several analysis is being done, which include building surface radiation by using shadow analysis, interior illuminance level by using relaxed daylight visualizer, and there are a total of 5 tests being conducted in this project. First of all, the insolations of different level of proposed site is being tested out during the months with highest temperature and the months with lowest temperature. From the test, we could obtain that the proposed site is basically free from any shadow casted from surrounding. Only first 2 levels of the proposed site will sometimes shaded by the building from the surrounding. Next, the difference material of the panels unit is being tested out to identify the difference in illuminance and luminance level obtained with different materials. The test is conducted through VLUX daylight visualizer, and the result of light quantity and quality at different opening levels is being recorded. Following with the result obtained, a chart of comparison is being plotted. From the result, the luminance and illuminance level when the parametric facade panel unit is fully closed, the opaque unit is the lowest, followed by the lowest unit and also the blinds unit. Inside the building, basically the light quantity and quality is very important, that it could not be too low, which would make the space inside the building too dark. However, too much light intensity will produce glare, which should also be avoided. And earlier it was very common with light levels in the range 100 to 300 lux for normal activities, but now it is changed to the commons at range 500 to 1000 lux depending on activities. Thus, as concluded from the simulation test, through the comparison, the blinds unit is the most suitable material to be used. This is because the glove line of the blinds unit is nearest to the optimum glove. And next, the insulations at different part of building is being tested out through shadow analysis at different equinox, and the insulation level of different facade is being recorded into a table. Following, a glass emittance level with 78% and 100% is being tested out to identify the most suitable type of glass to use in this building. After obtaining the result of illuminance level at different opening level, chart 3 and chart 4 is being produced with additional 2 lines, which the minimum lux and also the maximum lux. To identify the optimum range of illuminance level, to achieve minimum illuminance of 500 lux, data above a minimum lux is observed to identify suitable level of openings for different installations. By comparing the result of 78% and 100% emittance of level of glass, we can obtain that 78% emittance level of glass is used. It is still possible to make sure all the interiors to have the enough daylighting if the openings level of the parametric facades is being changed. However, when 100% emittance level of glass is used, it's also possible to make sure all the interior spaces have the illuminance level for between 500 lux to 1000 lux by adjusting the opening percentage. This would also mean that the panel could not close more than 80% to ensure the illuminance level fall at the optimum range. Thus, if 100% emittance level of glass is used, it is better that the opening and close from the opening of the panels at different time could also be determined and preset to decrease the technical problems and energy usage to operate the kinetic parametric facade in real-time situation. Since generally the office and study work would require illuminance level with range 500 lux to 1000 lux. Thus, glass with emittance level of 100% is chosen. Although 78% and 100% emittance of light have the ability to achieve the optimal illuminance level. However, with 100% emittance level of glass, the cost is cheaper than 78% emittance glass. Thus, overall, the 100% emittance and it will be adjusted to 20% close when the insulation is at 9 to 10 hours, 40% close when the insulation is at 5 to 8 hours, and 60% close when insulation is at 2 to 4 hours, and 80% close when the insulation is at 0 to 1 hour. Lastly, the final proposed design of the building is tested out again to identify the opening level of facade panels to be preset in the mechanism during different equinox. Following slides attach the drawings and diagram of the design of the building. So this is the library of the building, and then followed by the plans. This is the offices. And this is the elevation and section. And also this is the plan and section of the panel unit at different opening level. This is the exterior view of the buildings and also interior views. Now let's watch the video presentation of the proposed building.
Mingyi,
Yes.
your video is an hour 40 minutes. I don't think we have.
No, it's 5 minutes only.
Is it?
Just
Okay.
behind this is
That's
black.
It's almost a film you're showing us.
I think you can show us first 5 minutes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
it's 5 minutes. Just the video programs it shows longer.
Oh,
it's okay, Mingyi. I think I do get the idea of the project now. So yeah.
Okay.
yeah. I think Dr. Yuri can start. While we are seeing the video, you can start. Give some
Yeah.
comments.
Okay. Just keep the video on.
Yeah.
I think Mingyi, a lot of the concentration of your project is on the facade, right? You seem to have put a lot of design. The design process of your project seems to be focusing on that. Is it true?
Yes. We need to implement the dynamic parametric facades into the building as a shading device to reduce the energy usage of the building.
Yep, and I think that's very good, and then I understand that that's what you're trying to do, and it's very clearly stated on your project throughout, and then you kind of like tested also how does the facade react to the climatic condition. I think since you have still a lot of time to explore this project, Mingyi, I think what will be interesting is if that because my comment is that when I look at the way that you explore the design facade, you're kind of like only focusing in on an XY kind of like plane in a way. So the exploration is kind of like limited towards a particular street geometry, mainly. But what if because you said that you are interested in origami, and I think rather than just like treating I do apologize for that. I think my neighbor is drilling something.
Okay.
This is what happens when you work at home. So I think my comment is like right now, what if you can incorporate that exploration of the origami and also the facade, not only on the outer exterior, but you kind of like bring it inside, and then you kind of like start to mold some of the in-between spaces, like the corridor, or the open spaces, open public spaces on it, because you can't do much with the office. The office will remain as a square space as it is. But when you kind of like look at all the in between spaces, like the cafe, the corridors, the top roof garden. What if the form is not just a template that you kind of like just stick on top of it and then that's the facade? But what if the origami kind of like mold into the structure? What if the origami is also part of the columns, part of the beams, and even the floor? The floor can be also part of the origami rather than it's just a flat horizontal floor. And I think those design exploration, Mingy, you can actually kind of like bring into the design. And there are so many examples where people kind of like overlap on top of each other in terms of like creating the spaces. Like if we look at Ram Koolhaas when he designed the Kunsthal library, when Ram Koolhaas designed the Seattle library is one of the best example of like how you fold and unfold and then you created this beautiful space in between. I think look at the Seattle library. The Seattle library is one of the best example in terms of like how you bring in all this kind of like facade and then how this facade kind of like molds into the space of the design. I think that's the design opportunity that you can look at, because I understand you can't do much with the apartments, you can't do much with the office layout, but if you start to sculpt the origami into the building and then kind of like, yeah, I mean, don't just treat it as an XY exploration that's kind of like limited by the program. I saw some of your sketches in your design early on, and I think those sketches are really are really interesting. They're really beautiful in a way that sometimes you just have to go back to the sketches and then start to sketch your building and then see what I can improve on it. And then your design kind of like evolve more, because at the moment I kind of feel that your exploration on the facade is really good. It can actually open and close, and don't lose that sort of idea. But what you can improve is like, how do you bring that sort of like origami and everything into spatial design? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Yuri. So, Dr. PC, you have any very short and
I try to. Okay, all right. I try to make it short. Okay. Mingy, I do agree with Dr. Yuri about this one. Probably is due to the studio brief. I'm not sure. Maybe okay. Because we didn't being brief about the studio brief in earlier. So in the future, or probably if you want to take like sort of, for example, the origami as your idea, so you could look at the different scales and which is just more than the 2 dimensions. Probably you can make it like bigger scales, and how those the components itself could be turned into like part of the structure, the roof and so forth, instead of just the facade itself. But I do like the parametric study that you are trying to expand on that, and I think that there's a lot more possibility for you to explore in the future. Okay, and not only just a facade, but more than that. All right, and in the same time, for the studies of the insulations that you have tried to prove to us, that is good. But other than that, probably the shadow castings is something that maybe you can trying to explain to us, and how these shadows giving the impacts to the interior environments as well as the outdoor environments that allows the peoples around, because National Library is part of the public buildings that you want to benefits to the community itself. So not just maybe cannot we can just focusing more than just the interior, but also the outdoor environment. Yeah, I think I just will cut that short. Okay, these are some of the main points for you to enhance. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr.
Okay,
PC.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mingy. I hope that you will take note all these constructive comment, critics, and so on. So we are moving to the last students, last presenter with the her project is a hill landscape. So I would like to call upon Lily. Okay, are you ready, Lily?
Hi everyone.
Hi. Okay.
I'm having some technical issues, so Will is just going to share his screen for
Okay.
me.
No
Hopefully
worries.
that'll be back.
Okay. You can start now.
Okay. So hopefully you can all see that on the screen. I think Will's just following my cursor, so sorry if it's a little bit delayed. But hi, I'm Lily. I'm an apprentice at DMU, which means I spend 1 day a week on my university studies and 4 days a week in professional practice. Because of this split of my time, I sort of use my time in practice to develop my technical skills and basically learn the whole process of delivering real life projects, which then sort of allows me to use my time at university to develop a more theoretical design process and explore alternative ways of seeing and changing the built environment. So in my studio group, our brief is concerned with post-human landscapes and their future uses. So our studio site is the Hill Hole Nature Reserve, which is a former quarry and represents a post-human, post-industrial scar on the natural landscape. When I visited the site, although the physical landscape of the quarry was very dramatic, the actual site felt very serene and at peace, almost as if nature had reclaimed it and healed it. So for my project, I really wanted to analyse the quarry site to see what we can learn from the way that nature healed this landscape and how we can apply this to post-human, post-industrial scars in our city. So the scar in the city that I've chosen is the Cora factory, which is in the centre of Leicester. This factory is a former textile factory that is derelict, fire damaged, and currently awaiting its fate in the hands of Leicester City Council. So there are a few images across the top of the board here that sort of demonstrate the idea of mapping the poetics of the quarry and its beautifully serene landscape and translating these poetics into the refurbishment of the Cora factory. And when I say poetics in this sense, I sort of mean the kind of intangible qualities of a site that wouldn't be included in a standard ordnance survey map. So also here includes a little bit of the history of the Cora site, because it's very significant in the textile industry in the UK, particularly around the 50s and 60s, when their business was at its peak. So the actual business was started in 1830, and this diagram here shows the growth of the factory buildings from the 1880s right the way through to the 1970s, and then its gradual decline to the present day. So my idea for the program of this building is to reinstate the Cora as a textile factory, but instead one that focuses on sustainable processes and employee well-being. So another driver of this program, as you can see from this diagram here, is that during the early part of the pandemic, Leicester was unfortunately in the national media a lot because the pandemic exposed a lot of sweatshops in the city where people were spreading the virus by carrying on going into work simply because they didn't have a choice and they had no sick pay. And when they were going into work, they were also going into work for well below the minimum wage and often in poor conditions. So this project looks to create a factory centered around employee well-being and also one that focuses on more sustainable ways of producing fashion garments. So if I just skip over this bit. So this is where I've just started to map out the location of different buildings on site. The overall master planning of the site is going to include the factory building itself, located in the former quad of factory buildings. It's going to have staff housing, community shops, public and private gardens, allotments, a hemp processing building, a natural dye house, and also union headquarters for the workers. So now if I just go back to sort of the theory behind the project, and this idea of translating the poetics from one space into another, I looked at the work of Peter Zumthor, and specifically his book Atmospheres, where he describes the architecture he creates as a stage set. It is designed to sort of make people move around in a certain way and also feel a certain way. So to begin this process of poetic mimicry, which is what I'm calling it now, I laid an ordnance survey grid across the site of the quarry, which is over here. Sorry, I think we've got a bit of delay in the Miro board moving. And recorded various moments and poetics across the site that I would then like to capture in the building. So as you can see here from this large axonometric diagram, this is sort of a culmination of the moments and around the quarry being translated into the Cora factory. So the next part of the process is to sort of take these moments and recreate them within the architecture of the refurbishment. I think that possibly these two axonometric drawings, sketches down here, probably show this process quite well. In the middle here, we have the water in the quarry, which are recorded as being still and serene. And you have the top of the quarry, where you have moments where you feel as though you are falling towards the water, but also moments where you're surrounded by greenery and feel safe. So into the factory building, this translates into a peaceful, serene garden in the center of the quarry, and then a walkway around the top of the factory building with some places where you are sheltered and others where you feel more exposed and your eye sort of falls down the facade to the central garden. So I've tried to sort of split the building up into different sections and develop some different sketch ideas of what these different moments how I would like them to feel within the building. So I've used these angled panes of glass in the facade to sort of mimic the way that the light bounces off the quarry's rock face. This diagram here, over to the left, also shows the main quad of existing factory buildings. A little bit like Will's building, actually, I would like to leave the external walls relatively untouched so that when you enter into the quad, this dramatic architecture sort of reveals itself, just as the dramatic landscape of the quarry does as you approach it. And then across the bottom here, I just have a few thoughts about using water, again, to sort of mimic the poetics of falling down the rock face, but also this translates more functionally into the building as drainage to water this central garden, and also the psychological calming effects of running water. So you can see here I've done a sketch, a moment in the building where there's a man relaxing and there's this facade of that mimics the rock face with the water falling over it. And this diagram here is a concept diagram that shows the idea of the different processes in the factory falling down the building. So again, it's mimicking these poetics of the idea of the rock face falling away into the quarry, but this is actually done in the actual processes and how the building is going to be used. So this one on the left just shows fabric being woven together, and then the finished product at the bottom is the finished fabric. And this sort of mimics the act of quarrying. So originally when the quarry was used to get the product out, the product would have been dug down and retrieved at the bottom. So this idea of the product being produced in a way that falls down as you would do fall into the quarry. And then finally, this axonometric sketch just shows the idea of breaking up these individual factory units. So I want sort of the individual factory units to be dedicated to different sustainable processes. so natural dyeing or producing fabric from hemp. And then this just shows that they are broken up with green spaces in between, which are all linked by this central garden and this green sort of high line around the top of the factory quad, which will improve the air quality of the spaces and make it a pleasant place to work. So I've just placed some of my earlier studies of the rock faces of the quarry next to the more developed architectural proposals, so that you can hopefully see a link between these two. And it kind of shows the full circle of my design development at this point. So of course, this project is a work in progress, and I have a lot more work to do on the rest of the site, and including some of the buildings from my original master plan. But I hope this has given you sort of an overview of the theory behind my project and an idea of how it might develop. So yeah, that's my presentation so far. Thank you.
Okay, very interesting about the quarry, and then you're mimicking the quarry features. It's very interesting. So I would like to call Dr. PC to give some comments on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Azza and Lily. Very interesting, yeah, very fantastic ideas that I really enjoy the presentations, and I can see it's clearly visualized. I mean, the illustrations of how you map and translate the ideas and map that into the context of the buildings that you're trying to address on. Okay, so in this case, I think probably you may trying to study more in depth a little bit about the quarries that you are trying to bring that over to the buildings, and probably other than just the like topographies or also maybe probably the creatures or some of the organisms or even the human activities that have been happens in the past, that you can trying to look into that, okay, and eventually map up, okay, in which context or what context we can trying to apply those movements, okay, or the activities into the building that you are trying to do. Okay, so yeah, in other than that, I think maybe in terms of the solid and voids, you also can trying to play around with that. Okay, you did mentionings about the space utilizations of the space in between the gaps, or as well as the space that have been created or from the structures that you have designed. Okay, those are some of the in the further developments that you can try to look into that. Okay, so in order to maximizing and optimizing, okay, the use of the ideas. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Lily, I think I really love your project. I think it's really rare to find people doing hand-drawn drawings in this age where everyone's kind of like, everyone's concentrating too much on computer drawings. And I think also I can see you kind of like slowly transitioning it into a hybrid computer drawings, and it's good that when you kind of like trying to kind of like rationalize it, that the ideas behind it is not lost. It's kind of like properly being translated into the design. I agree with you that there's still a lot for you to kind of like consider in terms of the design proposal. And I think the best part about your design is when you kind of like look at the lower left of the Miro board, when you kind of like start to kind of like take a piece of it like a cake, and then you kind of like try to rationalize a piece of the cake, and then in terms of the design. I guess really the most important thing is like, because you said that you want the meal to have kind of like its original facade, and then somehow or other the transition as you go inside it, you kind of like feel you're entering into the new world. So that distinction needs to be quite clear, Lily. And I think maybe in the front spaces of the building, you kind of like maintain the original element of the facade, but give hints of like things coming out of it, like a parasitic tree that kind of like comes out from the cracking of the structure. But by design, that crack is kind of like a managed part of the design, because that's part of the design. Meaning it's meant to be there, there are a lot of like examples that you can look at, like the 2012 or I think 13 RIB winner Ashworth Castle. In terms of like it's a ruin, but the ruin is on the outside, but when you go inside, you kind of like feel like it's a different environment. I think this transition is actually quite clear, and then once you kind of like get into the middle, it becomes a quarry. I think that's a challenge, Lily. How do you create that sort of quarry vision and everything, and also bring some lush greenery into the fold? Maybe look at Heatherwick. I mean, Heatherwick seems to be really good at kind of like creating lush greenery inside spaces. I mean, the Jewel in Singapore, Changi Airport. I mean, that could be a good parameter for you to look at to create that lush environment that's kind of like hidden. You don't see that environment until you enter the middle of the court, and then this lush greenery happening around it. Or see, Will, what's the name of that hotel? I kind of forgot when we went to Singapore. Yeah, there is a hotel in Singapore. I can't remember. I think maybe people from Malaysia would remember that hotel. But the challenge really is to create that lush greenery. Look at Gardens by the Bay. They are so successful in terms of like creating all these architecture structures. But I think the best part about your building is when you kind of like created this like slither of sand cake structures, when you kind of like cut out from it. And then I think for you is to represent your project is kind of like to create this sort of spaces. If you go to the left, if you go to the right of your screen, Lily. Yeah. Okay, that's good. I mean, that's very clear. But if you go towards the right of it, towards the whole master plan, and I understand that this is still a developing idea in terms of it. I think there needs to be more variety in terms of like how you create that slither or the space of like the cake when you cut it. Because right now, because when you if you look at the superimpose, can we look at the superimposed drawing between the quarry and the building, the axonal?
Where, sorry?
The middle one. No, the top right. That axonal on the top right. Yes. Yeah, that one. Zoom in. I think you need to go back to this drawing, Lily. Yeah. And then look at that. Maybe the placement of each of the cake slice is based on this placement, and then some part of the building you leave it as it is, because then you cannot like go, and then you cannot like go back to it. In that sense, Lily, you don't have to design the whole thing, because I think you designing the whole thing will be too much. I think you need to leave some part of it as a reminder of the carcass, and then some part of it as a reminder as a vision of a space that's being healed. So having that two distinctive element in the design would be your design. So this is the answer. That axonal is the answer for it. And then if you look at the bottom right, you can't do it all. You just kind of like need to be tactical into kind of like, okay, it's going to be on this side, this angle, that angle, and then that side. But the quarry in the middle is still there. Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Very good.
Your feedback.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yuri. Very interesting comment also. So that's all for today. We have finished all the presentations for today. It's very good room to have some of the inputs from the panels, and also it's a very constructive comments from the panels. I think most of the students are very taken on all those comments. So I just want to welcome some of the guests from others university also, from SRMS, and also from I think there's from Thailand also. So welcome. So we are end for our colloquium for today. So thank you for all. I think only lecturer go to the room 1, isn't it, Dr. Yuri? Yeah.
Yep, I think it would be interesting if we kind of like leave this room for all these students to kind of like have a discussion in terms of like,
Yeah,
oh, we
yeah,
did this in UTM, we did this in DMU. So I'm just gonna leave that to the four of you to kind of like talk about it. I mean, we don't mind if you want to talk behind us, but yep. But yeah, okay. So don't just leave, guys. I mean, this is the point where you can talk with each other. So yeah, do talk with each other. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.